Okay, so hi, my name is Darren Gertis. I do these daily updates. You can subscribe if you've never been here before. Please subscribe. I will be back tomorrow. These I've done since day 85, and I will be back tomorrow, whether I'm sick like I am now. And please forgive me if I sound a little hoarse or if I cough. I'm still just trying to get the facts out to people. In the meantime, I have this image of a dog here sitting here in my office to stand in my place, and you'll understand why before we're done. So wait till the very last article and you'll understand it. Okay, here, Ukrainians use cell phone app to spot deadly Russian attack drones. So I'm a management professor. And I specialize in organizational leadership, so I approach things through this lens, and I am just amazed by the innovation that's here. If it wasn't for how destructive war is, I would say do this all day long in order to just innovate. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying to that this is a good thing. I'm saying, like, necessity is the mother of invention. The Ukrainians are crazy innovative. So here we have a simple mobile phone app has been developed by Ukrainian volunteers to allow civilians to report sightings of incoming Russian drones and missiles, and it's hoped to increase the proportion of shot down before they hit the ground. The app, called EPPO, relies on a phone's GPS and compass, and user only has to point their device in the direction of the incoming object and press a single button for it to send a location report to the country's military. Now, why does that work? Because drones are slow. So these drones that have done a lot of damage are actually pretty slow, and then they can kind of triangulate on it. However, the team behind the app believes that drones, relatively slow cruising speed, around 110 miles per hour, and their distinctive motorbike or lawnmower engine noise means that they are easy to detect from the ground. It's their Achilles heel. So again, the crazy level of innovation here, I have to applaud the Ukrainians for that. Okay. Now let's talk about what happened yesterday. Russia's Black Sea flagship was damaged in a Crimea drone attack, a video suggests. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more of the video from the water in just a little bit. Russia's Black Sea flagship vessel, the Admiral Makarov, was damaged and possibly disabled during an audacious Ukrainian drone attack. The facts aren't exactly in. We know that at least the minesweeper was damaged. We think that the Admiral Makarov was damaged. And it might even be one of 3 ships that have been hit on Saturday. We're not exactly sure what it is. It's hard to see. The Russians aren't exactly forthcoming. It was unclear if the Admiral Makarov was badly crippled or had escaped with light damage. The Ministry of Defense in Moscow said that they made no mention of the Admiral Makarov. In fact, the early reports said, oh, there was no civilian infrastructure harmed. Nobody was talking about civilian infrastructure, but they didn't say anything about their infrastructure or their damage to any other ships. Made no mention of the Admiral Makarov. The ministry admitted that there was minor damage to a minesweeper, Ivan Gobolitz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And then there was this really interesting video here, and let's go and look at some of the video. By the way, hats off to Steve Osborne. He's I think he's British, and he pointed me over to Such-Omimus. I guess that's how it's pronounced. They did a really good job here with describing what was in here, satellite footage, and that kind of thing. I've never seen this particular channel before, but they did a great job here and here. So if you want to follow up and see more of this, Dennis Davidov did a great job with it yesterday. And Steve, thanks. My hat's off to you for pointing that out. And I would recommend that you look at other channels and try to understand what's going on here. I'm slaughtering the language here, Sichumimus. Somebody told me the other day in a comment that I slaughtered the English language too. So I guess I don't feel bad about slaughtering Ukrainian names either, but this is my burden being an American. Okay, the UN expresses deep concern over Russian grain deal pullout as Washington slams Moscow. Okay, so what you need to understand about this is that it was a pretext. This is why I'm nervous when I hear things like Russia talking about a dirty bomb that no Ukrainians were talking about, because for me it sounds like a setup for a pretext later on. This grain deal pullout was in the works for a long time, and they were just waiting for a pretext. Grain exports are likely a key revenue source for Ukraine. That's true, but even more importantly than that is this. And now Russia's going to get a twofer out of this grain deal. Think about it just in the worst possible Machiavellian kind of way that you can think about this. What does Russia hope to achieve through this? Well, maybe a threefer, right? Okay, Ukraine loses money. Okay, and then, as Blinken said here, that since late July, the agreement has enabled the export of more than 9 million metric tons of grain and brought down prices around the world, which has been critically important for low and middle income countries. So, one, the Ukrainians lose money. Two, now you kind of get these poor countries agitated, and they will be starting to agitate for peace and wanting the war to end, and just make a deal with Russia so that this is over, right? And then three, and the third one's down here, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the move a completely transparent attempt by Russia to return the threat of large-scale famine to Africa. Actually, that's part of two. Three is a little bit further. Here, Russian Agricultural Minister Dmitry Parashuv said on Russian state television that Moscow was prepared to, quote, supply up to 500,000 tons of grain to the poorest countries free of charge in the next 4 months. So the first is that you're going to first be taking money away out of Ukrainian pockets. Second, you then start to starve the rest of the third world that is dependent on it. They get agitated. And three, you look like the hero when you provide it, as you being Russia. When Russia provides it, and so they get, it's all upside for them, but it was a pretext, and the pretext was this hit on Sevestopol. Sevestopol is a huge psychological strike. It didn't do a lot of damage, I don't think, but psychologically, nobody thought that it was going to get touched. Okay, so here is naval news, and I've not seen naval news before, but I was checking this out and seeing if this looked a little legit. It seems like it is. Ukraine strikes with the U.S. kamikazes, USVs. So UAV is what we usually call a drone. It's an unmanned aerial vehicle, so I guess is unmanned submersible vehicle. I could be wrong about that. But the Russian bases aren't safe anymore. They actually struck in the heart of the base, which is really amazing that this was able to be done. And I'll show you this footage in just a moment. But they said this: Ukraine attacked the base simultaneously with UAVs and USVs. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed that that all UAVs and 4 USVs were repelled by the BSF units, and their 3 USVs were destroyed on land. Okay, if by destroyed on land, if they mean that they're destroyed because they blow up and they hit something, I don't know. So you can't really trust what the Russian Defense Report or Russian Defense Ministry statement says, because they lie about stuff at other times. So it's hard to tell. Russian Defense Ministry stated on its official Telegram account that only one MCM vessel, Ivan Goblets, was slightly damaged in the attack. So what does that mean exactly? Slightly? We don't know. And was it just one? We don't know, because, again, they lie. But the footage really looks different. And here's the footage just in the water. I showed the footage yesterday, so go back and see that if you want to see the explosion. But just in the water of what it looks like on the... if this is correct, if this is what I think it is, this is the USV heading toward the ship. It doesn't show any explosion or anything like that. But that's, as it's riding the wake on its way toward the ship. So it looks like Russian has a new problem set ahead of it. Okay, now if you were wondering why you see this dog sitting here, well, here he's sitting here in my office in my stead, since I'm not looking all that swell right now. I look terrible. I feel terrible. But he's sitting there because it's kind of a hat tip to the well, you'll see this. The NAFO, the North Atlantic Fella Organization. And they're here to troll Russian politicians and raise money for Ukraine's armed forces. So here they are. Okay, so you've seen Russian trolls. I've seen Russian trolls, that's for sure. They tell me some horrible things, and I'm always surprised. Russian trolls never actually really take me on about any argument. They just try to poison the well or say something insulting or something like that. But I've rarely had a Russian troll say anything negative to any of my arguments, which I find fascinating. Okay, it may be NATO sending missiles and tanks to Ukraine, but on social media, propaganda and information war is being fought by a rowdy band of online comrades called NAFO. Meet the fellas. Okay, and I've said this before, that there's a military war, like a hot military war with bullets, right? And then with that, there's a political war, and then there's an economic war, and then there's an informational war. Here's the informational war. And you're part of that as you're listening to this now, and you're going to be spreading truth yourself, right? So you're part of that as well. They hound Russian officials on Twitter and ensure those who spout lies about the war are met with a horde of cartoon Shiba Inu dogs. Okay, here's mine, and he's sitting here in my office. So, but beyond the jokes and memes, the fellas have raised huge sums to buy ammunition and vehicles for the Ukrainian resistance. I'm not part of the fellas. I don't know exactly how you become that, but that's pretty cool. So this is my tribute to them. Twitter users post screenshots of their donations along with fella requests with what they want their fella to be wearing and any items it should have, and the Fogers, whatever. Take it from there. Okay, over $1 million has been raised for Ukraine's defense. Much of the money raised by NAFO is donated to the Georgian Legion, a foreign volunteer unit that has been fighting in Ukraine since 2014. Estimates vary about how much money has been raised by NAFO, but some put it at more than £860,000. That's close to $1 million. And so this is some pretty interesting stuff. Now, it goes down a little bit further. It's an overwhelmingly positive movement. NAFO co-founder Matt Morris says the group gives everyone globally with an interest and an internet connection a way of getting involved. NAFO is overwhelming positive movement. The movement is somebody's replying to the moment someone is replying to a cartoon dog online, you've lost. I just thought that was great, right? I mean, there are Russian troll farms. I know the professor that is the lead expert in Russian troll farms. That's a thing. It's out there. So this is their way of striking back. It's kind of like Anonymous, the masked movement. It's kind of like that. While it's not a military alliance like its namesake NATO, NAFO fellas abide by one of the same core principles, Article 5. When one member is threatened, or in the case of the fellas spot some Russian propaganda on Twitter, they can tweet hashtag Article 5 and other fellas will come to their aid. That's freaking awesome. Ben Wallace, the Defense Secretary and MP, and a fella, maybe. Okay, I salute you, hashtag fellas. UK Defense Secretary Ben Wallace has received the NAFO treatment too, pictured alongside Ukrainian counterpart, and he tweeted back, privilege, onwards we go. So that's the fellas, and I just thought that was a great way to end this. So for that reason, I salute the fellas, and I'm going to forego fun with Russian state media, which I have up here, but we're going to leave that alone for today because this is very, very cool. Okay, guys, I hope to be back in full strength tomorrow. If not, I'll be back the next day, and in the meantime, my fella avatar can stand in my place here, and thank you for your time. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about what's going on in Ukraine.